Hey, welcome to another episode of Shashank Redemption. I'm your host, Shashank Shekhar, and I'm super excited for my guest today on the show. His name is Rafael Loureiro. He is the CEO and co-founder at VELT, and we'll talk about VELT shortly. It's a very exciting company that's trying to disrupt something which has been a very manual process for decades, if not centuries, but we'll come to that later. But before that, let's welcome Rafael to the show. Rafael, welcome.
Thank you, Shekhar. I'm super excited to be here.
Cool. Let's talk about you first before we jump onto Wealth, because I know what you're building there is very exciting and something which I have seen for the first time. But I'll let you talk about that a little later. Why don't we walk through your journey building up to Wealth? I mean, I know you have been chief technology officer at a couple of companies before, and I think you were a senior consultant before that. Just walk us through your professional journey, which led you to create Wealth.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So, as you can tell by the accent, I was not born in the U.S. I was I was born in Brazil.
Makes the two of us. I wasn't born in Brazil, but not in the U.S.
Oh no, believe me. I mean, I listen to a lot of your podcasts, and we have a lot of similarities on our experience and journey.
Mm.
I was born in Brazil, and then at the age of 12 years old, I learned about coding. And at that moment, I made the decision that impacted my whole life. I said, hey, I want to be doing this for the rest of my life. I love development. I'm a software engineer. So I went to a computer science school in Brazil and loved every minute. And then in 2001, I had a chance to come to the US as a H-1B holder. And for your listeners that don't know what an H-1B is, it's an immigration visa for high-skilled workers. And that was my first experience working for a startup in the US. But if you remember, 2001 is also the year that the internet bubble burst.
Yes.
So I saw a lot of unemployment, a lot of people losing jobs during that time. But luckily, I survived. I was not impacted. And I started working as a developer. And after my first startup, I went into the consulting field. Right, I was a software engineer and working for several companies, including like Pulte Homes and Avanade, which is a joint venture between Accenture and Microsoft. In my whole experience, Shekhar, I worked for 4 startups. One went nowhere.
Okay.
It was dealing with foreclosure. 2 of them were successful in different degrees. Right, the first one is still in business, but not growing much. The second one is Emailage, and that's the company that we sold in 2020. I was their CTO. I was in the company for 7 years, and we had a successful acquisition in 2020, right when COVID began. So you can imagine how nervous I was at that stage. But luckily, it went through and was a very successful acquisition, which takes me to my 4th startup, Wealth.com. I am a developer by trade, right? I've been CTO and been developer for the past 25 years, and Wealth is my first experience as a co-founder and CEO. So it's been very interesting.
So the last company, was that acquired by LexisNexis?
Yes, it was LexisNexis in 2020. So it was a fraud prevention company. It's a SaaS-based business. The product was an API that, and we work like with massive companies in the US. It was a global solution where you pass your email address and we would return a risk score based just on the email address. Because if you think about it, email, it's a global identifier, right? Why you have a social security number in the US, you don't have a social security number in Brazil, but email works everywhere.
Wow.
So just with this little detail, email address, we could return a risk score and prevent fraud.
Yeah, and LexisNexis is, of course, they are the premier company when it comes to fraud prevention and protection. We use that. We use them within the mortgage space as well. So we are very familiar with their product. So tell me, I mean, you had just gone through a successful acquisition as the CTO for this company that you sold to LexisNexis. Now, how did Wealth come about? It seems, at least from the way that I see it, is that happened pretty quickly. You closed that in May of 2021, and in July of 2021, Wealth came about. And is this something that you were working on while the acquisition was going on? How did you come across the other co-founders? Give us a little bit more color into how Wealth started.
Totally. So when we sold the company in 2020, March, I went to work for LexisNexis. So I was actually at LexisNexis for a year.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
And that was like during the COVID peak, everybody working from home. I didn't see my friends. I was just like spending time with the family. Mm-hmm. But one thing that happened that was very common to everybody involved in the acquisition is we all got our estate planning done during that time, right? Different states, different lawyers, we all got the estate planning done. A year later, as usually happens, I meet my former email age friends for coffee, and we're just chatting, right? That happened like last year in June. We're chatting about our experience with estate planning. They were like, it's so old school, so convoluted, right? Everything is paper-based, right? You have to go to a lawyer, multiple visits. It's expensive. You don't know how much money you're going to expend when you go to a lawyer. And we're like, is there anything we can do about this? Has anyone tried to disrupt this space? And the answer is yes, absolutely. A lot of people try to disrupt this space, but we wanted to try something new. And the reason I think we are unique is we're providing a solution that combines personal financial management and estate planning, right? And what I mean by that is the first step when you go to a lawyer and he's going to ask you and try to do your estate planning is like, what are your assets? Shekar, I'm going to ask you to think about 30 years ago, right? 30 years ago, most likely you work with one bank, right? If you wanted to buy Coca-Cola, you had to call someone to buy Coca-Cola, right? Life was simple. But if you move to today, I mean, you can buy NFTs, you can buy different cryptos, you can buy fractional art, you can buy crowdsourcing real estate, right? So life is way more complicated. It's beneficial to you because now you have different investment channels, but it's more convoluted, right? So the first step when you're doing estate planning is to get that holistic picture of all your assets. As a former startup warriors, like all of us, we said, hey, let's do some research. Let's see what's available. And we noticed there was no solution in the market that was providing a digital estate planning solution that was always up to date, that would stay with you during your journey. So that's where the idea of Wealth came from. And the name itself, as you notice, we did not buy estateplanning.com, we bought wealth.com, right? Because estate planning is just one facet of your wealth, right? We want to help you. We see wealth as more than just assets. We see like wealth as knowledge, as love, right? You collect all these through your lifetime. So that's why we needed a name that represented more than just estate planning.
Yeah, I mean, wealth definitely has more emotional connotation as well. Something that relates to you passing on to your future generations than estate planning, which seems very individual and very transactional in nature. So that was definitely a masterstroke. I don't know if I should be asking you how much wealth.com domain actually is worth. Because
and I wish I had like a fun story to tell. Say, hey, we bought this, we got this domain on a poker table in Vegas. But it was not. I mean, we came up with the name. We noticed the name that had never been used before. There was one person sitting on the names, on the domain name for like 20 years. And a lot of negotiation, a lot of back and forth, and we were able to acquire it. But I'd rather not disclose the amount.
No, sure. I did not expect you to, but I mean, that's quite a domain name to have. When we rebranded to InstaMortgage, I mean, that was a domain name that one of the top 10 mortgage companies has had since 1999. So we had to go back and forth with a lot of negotiations as well. So I understand the value of domain names like that, and sometimes it's not that easy to acquire. So and And that, what you were mentioning about estate planning has been my personal experience as well, is the fact that when you go for estate planning, of course, it's super paper intensive, but also the fact that you have to remember all these accounts related to your finances. As you rightly said, now you have 3 brokerage accounts, you have 4 401ks accounts, you have all these checking and savings, not to mention all the crypto assets. You don't remember which wallet was which one and which website did you use to buy which crypto. So that was my biggest problem, other than, of course, just the nature of how much documentation and paper and how big is this estate planning thing, is that you didn't remember where all these accounts were, and then try and go and change all of those to add the beneficiary to the trust and everything else. So I think it's a master stroke to put those two together, because one by itself is okay. I mean, estate planning by itself is also something that I don't think has been done in terms of the digital way that you're trying to do. But putting both of them together is definitely a master stroke. Now, let's talk more on the personal wallet side or personal financial side. Is this merely just a collection of all your documents and puts, say, your net worth together? What are you doing on the personal financial side on wealth.com?
And I'm so glad you mentioned this about the 401ks and all your wallets, because I mean, Shekhar, one thing I noticed by doing this is the Americans lose, right? There are like $1.35 trillion in forgotten 401ks.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Isn't this, I mean, imagine if you're not here to tell your family, hey, I used to work for this company for 6 months, I may have a 401k there.
Yep.
Right. So that's what we're trying to solve. I mean, in the case that you are no longer here, your family can log into the website through emergency access and get a holistic picture of everything that you have. You don't have to keep chasing and losing money in the process, right? So for the initial release, all we're doing is allowing you to aggregate all your assets, but it's more than just connecting your financial accounts, right? We're adding integrations every month. So through the website, you can integrate with 14,000 financial institutions in the US. You can connect your Coinbase wallet. You can price your real estate with Zillow. But we have a very exciting integration coming later this month. I'm not allowed to speak about it, but every month we're adding new integrations because we want to make this process easy for you and your family, right? So you can log into the website and see your net worth, see all your assets in a single place. And when I say assets, it means different things for different people, right? I'm also talking about your baseball collection.
Yeah.
If this is something you prize. I'm also talking about the watch that you got from your dad and you want to leave for your son. You know what I mean? So you can track all of these on the website.
Yeah, I saw something as cute and sentimental as maybe your grandmother's ring, as you rightly said. These are not just when we say financial assets, we sometimes just mean the 401ks and the checkings and the savings of the world. We forget about all these things, right? I mean, those watches, even the painting that you probably got from 3 generations, 4 generations before could be worth a significant amount of money. And putting all of that together has always been a challenge. I mean, I think even now I use something like Google Sheets just to make sure that I don't forget about some of the accounts that I have, is where they are located and how to do that. So let's talk about the estate planning part of it. So financial services or financial planning at this point of time includes putting all the assets together, including the not so obvious one, as you rightly mentioned. Those could be collection of baseball cards or Pokemon cards or what else. People have different kinds of hobbies, of course. What does wealth.com do with the estate planning needs? Is this almost exactly similar to what, say, an estate planning attorney will do, or is this somehow a watered down version of that? Walk us through what the process looks like.
We have a different target, right? So a target market is the mass affluent. So it's people making more than $100,000 a year, but with less than $5 million in assets. And we believe with the solution we have in place, we can serve this market really well, right? So through the website, you can get your living trust done, your last will and testament done, guardianship, healthcare directive, and financial power of attorney, All these documents have been crafted from scratch from an amazing head of legal, Yale educated, Columbia JD, top 3 estate planning firm that work for us. So it's a really high quality document, valid in 50 states.
And how does the process work, Rafael? So does someone just go to the website to start entering their information? How does it end at? Do they have to then at some point of time go see an attorney? Like, walk us through how is the process different than me walking into an estate planning attorney's office? Why is wealth.com any different than me working directly with an attorney?
Very good question. I mean, the big difference is like, we are not going to be a one and done solution. So you log into the website, you upload as a first step, regardless if you go to a lawyer or to the website, you're going to have to find out where all your assets are, right? And upload them somewhere. In your case, a Google Sheet. In my case, was also a Google Sheet. So sure. You go there, you upload all your assets. That's the first step. And then after this is done, we're going to hold your hand and go through a questionnaire to define which documents do you need, right? Based on your own situation. I'll give an example. Do you own real estate outside your home state? If you say yes, you need a trust. If you don't, we keep going to the questionnaire, right? And then at the end of the questionnaire, we create a profile for you saying, hey, here's all the documents you need. If you live in a communal property state like California, you may only need one trust, but if you don't, you need 2 trusts, one for you, one for your significant other, right? So we create that roadmap, and then you have to populate the documentation, right? So you go through a second step where you provide the data, your beneficiary, your executors, and then we generate the documentation at the end of the process that you can take, notarize, and it is as valid as if you had gone to a lawyer. The difference is keep this information up to date. And that's why it's important to have also the financial aspect of the solution, right? And I'll give you an example. It's an intelligent platform. So if you add a new beneficiary, I am going to look into your assets. And I'm going to say, hey, Shikar, I noticed that now you have a new beneficiary, but you don't have a 529 college plan. Is it time to create a 529 college plan, right? And then you can do that. From the financial, from the asset aggregation side, if you buy a new property, I'm going to prompt you and say, hey, Shikar, I noticed you bought a new property. Is this your primary home? Yes or no? Yes. I noticed this home is no longer in California. Have you moved? Yes. Let's update your estate plan documentation. You know what I mean? So we keep everything up to date always with this platform. It's not like you have to go back to the lawyer every 5 years and then remember everything that you acquired the last 5 years and report the changes, right? We're going to keep your information always up to date. It's a solution for the journey. It's not a point solution.
Yeah, constantly evolving, constantly updating, constantly prompting if they forgot about mentioning something which could be critical, which is how it should be. It should be a dynamic, fluid document because people get their estate planning done in 40s most likely. I mean, I would think majority of them, maybe early 50s, but I mean, the normal life expectancy goes into 80s and things change over the next 25, 30 years after they built it. But in most cases, I would assume that they create it once and then they forget about it. And some of those things may not even be relevant by the time those need to be used. So that's brilliant, especially some of the and the artificial intelligence related features where it learns what kind of questions to ask and ask those questions in the future. Now, talk to us about the very beginning of Wealth. It sounds like a strong product, something that people will need. And so there definitely is a product market fit here from what the consumer needs in this space and what Wealth is providing. But I'm sure even with the product market fit and the fact that I think you have 3 co-founders, Rafael, is that correct?
Yeah, it is correct.
Yes. So the fact that you had the benefit of working with 2 overall 3 people. So all of that, of course, seems to have gone well for you, but there must have been some challenges. No startup, you and I both know about this, is that goes without its hiccups, not just at the time when it gets started, but also throughout its journey. So walk us through some of the challenges that Wealth had to go through or you had to go through in the first few months before it kind of started ramping.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One thing I neglect to mention is we raised our seed round last year in August, and we have Entus Capital as a lead investor. And Entus and us, the co-founders, we have a history together.
Oh,
Entus,
okay.
yeah, Entus led our email age Series B, right? So they know the team, and that's what they gave us like a trust, right, with the $60 million round last year. At that point, we had a team, we had an idea, but we didn't have a product. So we built the product in 9 months.
Wow.
And that was hard. I mean, it's a new space, so we had to acquire knowledge. We, like I was telling you, we hired this top heavy legal to help us design the estate planning side. We also went to Goldman Sachs and not we poached some people from Goldman Sachs to help
Sure.
us with the financial side of the solution. The fact that we had to get something out and done in 9 months was a big challenge.
Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge that I think we're facing right now is we launched the product last month, and now we're going through this market downturn.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all uncharted waters. I mean, we keep hearing feedback from different people. Hey, you should try to extend your runway, or you should try to raise money now, right? Do another seed round just to have a strong war chest. So that's the moment we're living now, the challenge that we're currently going through. Not only as all these startups.
Yeah, true. I mean, it is slightly uncharted territory what's happening in 2022. We have seen our fair share of that as well. But I mean, it's a strong product, and I believe that this is something that the future investors will be interested in. So, Anthos, you mentioned that you had prior relationship with, and so they of course trusted the leadership. Any feedback or any learning or anything that you can share with our audience where maybe they don't have connections with potential investors or VCs here? What route should they take if they have an idea like Wealth, and they think that it's a good product market fit and they have the skills? Any suggestion? What would be a good route for them to go out, especially in a market like this, which is of course a tough market to raise capital? Anything that you can guide our listeners?
Totally. And one thing I'm going to say about Entus is when you're raising money, it's a dollar is a dollar is a dollar. So find someone that offers more than just money. And that's the case with Entus. I mean, they offer money, but they open a lot of doors for us. They have a very good advisory team and operational team that help us run the business, right? So find a partner, someone for the road, right? So that would be my first recommendation. The second is go out, get out of your comfort zone. I'll give an example. Here in Phoenix, we have a startup meetup. And in this place, you can find companies very well established like Insta Mortgage, your company. And you can also find companies that are like, they only have one founder, right? And then go there, meet people, ask questions. Usually you're going to find VCs in this space. Usually they're really good at give you their opinion, right? If they like your idea, if they don't like it, if they think it's a viable business, they won't hold back. So get out, call people, send email. LinkedIn is a good place. I mean, I'm always like reaching out to investors that I believe would be a good fit for Wealth, right? And see if they want an introduction, overview of the company. And I've been very successful at that.
That, Rafael, brings me to the last question, is you have been not just, say, a CEO and co-founder at Wealth, which is your own company. You have been fairly enterprising, even though you worked at different companies, whether at CTO or, as you mentioned, this is your fourth startup, whether you founded it or not. So you have a ton of experience, either scaling the startup, exiting the startup, and in this case, building one right from scratch. And that's an invaluable experience for, say, people who could be thinking about starting their first company and maybe starting as an entrepreneur. What are a couple of lessons? And you just mentioned a couple really valuable ones right now about being out there, asking questions, trying to build connections. What other advice that you will give to people who might be coming out of business school or something where they're just thinking about startup? Should they be working somewhere for a few years, then start something on their own? Should they be starting right now? Like, walk them through some of these questions that always come into their head when thinking of starting a company. Since you have been on both sides of the table, so to say, give us some of your tips on that.
Absolutely. I'll give you the same thing I tell my daughters, right? I have two daughters. Okay. They both grew up in the US. They both went to great schools, Berkeley and UCLA. Right? I'll give you the same thing I tell them. Like, look, if I were you, graduate. Not because everybody needs a college degree, even though I value a college degree very highly.
It is.
But it's a great time in your life.
Yeah.
You're going to make so many connections, right? You're going to learn so much. It's part of life. Spend these 4 years, give yourself these 4 years. After you're done, go work for a great company. Mm-hmm. Go work for Facebook, Google, spend like 2 years there and use that time not only to learn what to do, but what not to do, right? Yeah. And keep thinking about your ideas. But as you know, I love the startup game. I think it's fun. It's not easy, right? I know luck. People keep talking after you sell a company. Oh, you're so lucky. Luck is important, but hard work is way more important.
Yeah, absolutely.
There will be challenges. There will be moments where you're like, hey, how am I going to do payroll next month, right? But it's fun. You learn so much. You become better as a person. You have to learn how to collaborate with other people, other cultures. Like with Image, we had offices all over the world, and what's normal in the US might not be normal in Brazil. The feedback that you can give an employee in the US might be a little bit different than the feedback you give an employee in Brazil, right? So you have to learn the difference. But get out there. You have to take the first step. The worst failure is when you don't even try, right? You're so afraid of trying, and that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. If I have done my startup, would I have been successful? Just try it, and because it's worth it.
No, it totally is worth it. And it's so surprising that everything that you said in terms of advice is how I have kind of led my career. After my business school, I went to work for General Electric, which, as you know, has 200,000 plus employees. And then I worked for a startup where I was employee number 2, and then started my own startup. So it's like you learn from big companies, you learn from small companies, and then eventually you think that you're ready, even though you're never ready. Until you start. So in talking about challenges, will you make the next payroll? I remember at the beginning of 2019, I had $39,000 in my company account. And I was like, will I make my payroll next month? And since then we have grown 1,300% in the last 3 years. So it's like, you need to enjoy the journey. You need to be ready for all these ebbs and flows that happens within the entrepreneurial life. As you rightly said, you raised $18 million not too far back, and suddenly you are thrown into a market like 2022 where you don't know where the future lies. So and you have to be ready for all of that, is because it's not peaches and roses. So very well said, Rafael.
Thank you.
So that was Rafael Loureiro. He is the CEO and co-founder at VELT, a company that's really disrupting something that hasn't been done for, as I said, decades, if not centuries, because estate planning has been there for a very, very long time. And Wealth.com is doing that. Rafael is doing that with his 2 other co-founders, and combining financial planning with that. I can't wait to see some of the future integrations and upgrades that Wealth will be building on, because this, even though it seems like a great product already, there are tons of enhancements that can be made, which will make it, so far ahead of the competition that they will find it very, very hard to catch up. So thank you, Rafael, for sharing your journey, sharing your tips with the audience, and most importantly about Wealth.com, which I'm personally very excited about, and we'll keep an eye on the future of it.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.